Hello everyone, my name is Tyler Krohn-Piatek from Coley at Canisius College. In this video we will cover the various basic restriction options in D2L's quiz engine. Availability dates and restrictions can be confusing and complicated. Here we will discuss what they do and how they operate. First, what are availability dates? Where do I find that? Availability dates can be found in the Restrictions tab when you first create a quiz or by clicking on the caret to the right of a quiz and selecting Edit from the drop-down and going to the Restrictions tab. What you see when you first view this is the Hide from Users option. This may or may not be checked and takes care of whether or not students can see the quiz. This setting will override all visibility settings below it, like the availability dates, restrictions, or special access. I'll leave it checked for now, but I will uncheck it when we go towards the end of this video. The second thing that you see is the due date. To activate it, you have to click on the check box to the left of it, and then you can set a date and a time. The due date really is for D2L's calendar system, which can be helpful to notify students of upcoming deadlines for quizzes or other assignments. It does no more than that. It does not, for example, prevent students from accessing the quiz and continuing it. That is taken care of by availability dates. You can see availability dates under the section titled Availability. In this section is start date and end date. I'll check both of them to make sure that they're active. Availability dates take care of how much time a student can access the quiz. For example, I can set it so that students can only access the quiz for 1 hour or for 3 days. Before this time period and after this time period that I have chosen, students will not be able to access the quiz. So for this example, I will set it so that the student only has 1 hour to access the quiz. I'll actually change the due date as well to the 5th. I'll change the start date instead. The next thing that we're going to go over is timing, which is below availability dates. You can choose a recommended time limit, which will let students know that they should not be spending more time than you plug in. It defaults to 120 minutes. You can show a clock if you'd like, but this will not prevent them from taking more time than you suggest. If you want to prevent students from continuing a quiz past the time limit, use enforced time limit right here. It defaults to 120 minutes with a grace period of 5, but you can easily change that. The time limit is obviously how much time you want students to be able to actually do the quiz. So I'll set this to 60. The grace period is additional time that you want to allow your students to have, but that does not appear on their timer. In effect, if I want a 60-minute quiz, I should plug into the time limit box 55 minutes and leave the grace period at 5 minutes. However, D2L will not let students know that they have that extra time. All they will see that they have is 55 minutes to complete the quiz. So instead, I'll input into the time limit 60 minutes with a grace period of 1 additional minute. This is because D2L will not let me plug in a 0 time limit for the grace period. After I'm done setting up the time limit and the grace period, I can look at the exceed time limit behavior. So this will govern what happens after a student has reached the time limit that I have set and dictated here. So I can either allow the student to continue working, prevent the student from making further changes, or allow the student to continue working but automatically score the attempt as 0 after the deadline. I'll choose prevent the student from making further changes. So after they reach the 61 minutes, the student will not be able to make any changes, and D2L will actually force them to submit the quiz themselves. Now here's something important to note. As long as the student accesses the quiz before the end date, they will get the time as enforced by the enforced time limit. For example, let's say I've set a quiz to start with a start date of 11/5 at noon, and an end time of 11:05 at 1 p.m. I have the enforced time limit set to 60 minutes with a grace period of 1 minute. If student A accesses the quiz at noon, because that's the start time, that's when they're able to access the quiz, otherwise it's grayed out, they will obviously be able to get the full time as intended by the enforced time limit. If their Wi-Fi goes out during that time or some other technology issue causes them to otherwise leave the quiz page, so long as they access the quiz before this 1 p.m. end date, they will have whatever time they had remaining, minus the time it took them to get back on and back to the quiz. If student B accesses the quiz at 12:59 p.m., a full minute before the quiz's availability is scheduled to end, they will still get the full time, the full 60 minutes, as dictated by the enforced time limit. This means that if all goes well, they have the full hour past 1 p.m., even though the end date time has passed. However, if a student has a technology issue where they are unable to stay on the quiz page for whatever reason, they will not be able to access their attempt even if they had time remaining. Instead, when they look at their quizzes, they will see a red star next to their submissions. This lets them know that they have a quiz in progress, but they will be unable to submit their quiz. If you ever need to find a quiz trapped in the in progress state, we have a tutorial for that. See the video in the card above. It is also in the D2L self-paced training set. This example illustrates how it's probably best to tell students to complete the quiz before the end date time. That way they avoid possible problems where they are unable to complete the quiz. A few other things to note. Everything in the restrictions tab can be overwritten, aside from hide from users, can be overridden by special access, which we talk about in another video that you can view by clicking on the card above. To put it simply, special access can be given to specific students that may require extra time, attempts, etc., and override the start and end dates as well as the amount of time that student has to work on it. Second, if you make changes to quiz questions while a student is taking a quiz, D2L will attempt to notify you that a student has either already taken the quiz or is in the process of taking the quiz. It will also notify you that any changes made here will only affect future quiz attempts. The quiz that the student who is in the process of taking the quiz will have the original quiz questions with none of the changes. D2L can be unpredictable if you make changes to the time limits or availability while students are taking or have taken the quiz. For this reason, it is always best to get the settings the way you want them and double check them before making the quiz available to students. So it is best to make your quizzes at least a few weeks in advance of when you actually want the quiz to happen. This way you have time to review the quiz before students start taking it and gives you a chance to make changes or updates and so on. Trying to rapidly create quizzes may have unpredictable results in D2L. The other options you see in this page have been discussed in previous videos, which will be linked below or as part of a playlist in the card above. That is it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at helpdesk@canisius.edu. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.